Get started in just a minute. I've been asked to run the meeting today since Daryl's
Yeah.
out of town.
That would be better. I'm on an iPad and the picture is small and the sound is kind of funky, so I think it'd be better.
Is there anyone else we're waiting for?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I haven't heard from Jody or Chuck, but
I think Jody sent me an email saying she's not able to make it.
okay.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Should we start with some introductions? I'll go first. I'm Summer. I'm a public member of the committee.
I'm Kristen. I'm a public member.
I'm Phil. I'm a public member. Lee Randall, a facilities department staff member. I'm Nick Lee, county administrator and ex officio member.
I'm Elizabeth. I'm the county auditor.
Joe Healy, public member.
And our guests here.
I'm Eric Robb, deputy county administrator and risk manager.
Deputy County Administrator.
Robert Chutel, chief financial officer.
And our remote folks.
Daryl Parrish, public member.
Susan DeJody, I am the new performance auditor.
Welcome.
Welcome, yay. Is there anybody else online?
And
That's it?
Pauline.
Pauline Ward. I'm a paralegal here in County Legal.
All right, thank you.
And Angie's taking notes for us.
Good, thanks. Minutes from last meeting. Hopefully everyone had a chance to take a look at them. Any questions, comments, corrections? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes from February 14th, 2025 meeting.
A second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. On to admin update.
Great, thank you, and thanks for moving me up on the agenda. I have a meeting at the sheriff's office at 3 o'clock, so unfortunately need to leave at 2:30, a bit earlier given the traffic downtown as well. Four quick updates. One is our human resources director recruitment, and while I appreciate Whitney and Eric identifying themselves as deputy county administrators and their other respective roles of communications director and risk manager, Whitney also wears the hat of interim human resources director, and Eric is assisting by serving as an interim human resources manager. So we look forward to moving forward with the human resources director recruitment. We have interviews scheduled on Monday for our first round, and then our second round is scheduled for the end of April. So we're really looking forward to having that position filled, we hope, and as soon as we possibly can. As you may recall, Kathleen Hinman, our prior director, left last September, and we had an ongoing recruitment that did not turn out to be successful in the fall. So we've relaunched, and we have a great pool of candidates. We look forward to that position being filled. And our second is our health services director. So this is our largest county department of over 400 FTE. And this position, we have Janice Garceau, whom you've met and presented at the last meeting. She is retiring at the end of May. We plan to launch that. We did have one recruitment earlier this winter that was not successful, unfortunately, and we plan to relaunch that recruitment next Friday, April 18th, and that will run for a month is our goal until May 8th. So then we'll end up have our interviews then occurring in June and go from there. So I wanted to provide those two updates. A third update that's very important that you've seen in the press quite a bit is the Board of County Commissioners direction to staff to create a process to propose districts for the county commission seats. The board is moving to 5 county commissioners based on the ballot measure that was approved last November. And the next step is the commissioners have directed staff to then create a process. So their first decision at the end of May was, yes, we're going to go forward with this process. Number 2 is aim for May of 2026. So just 13 months from now will be that election. And what we're going to discuss this next Wednesday then is and the third decision that they made is to create a committee to propose districts. So this next Wednesday is a very important day where they'll decide how we're going to create the committee. Commissioner DeBonne has suggested, let's look at a civic assembly where it's a random sample of residents that would be selected. We've conducted a lot of research about that. That'll be one option. Another option is when county governments change the form of government, they can create a charter committee. Moving to just districts does not trigger the charter process, but state law does provide an avenue to provides requirements what must be in a committee in a charter amendment process. So that's one example of what we could use. We could use that where the Board of Commissioners selects 4 people, and then our legislative delegation, they each select one, and there may be another. I can't remember what the other avenue is. It's all, they're outlined in our staff report for next Wednesday. And then the third option is to create a local option, a local appointment. So that may be taking the charter amendment process, for example, and then what other local appointments might the board want to make? Do they want to allocate those to cities? Do we want to allow cities to appoint a member to the committee? And if so, then is it one per city, or is it proportionate somehow based on population, given that Sisters of the Pine are rather small and City of Bend is significantly larger? But those will be the decisions that the board will make this next Wednesday of what the composition of we'll then begin to continue to have meetings with the board about that process, such as what is the structure of or what are the decision-making powers of the committee compared to the board? So is the board going to provide the direction that we're going to create 5 districts or 4 districts with 1 at large? Or is that something that they'll let the committee decide and make a recommendation? There are a lot of decisions that the board will need to make about what the parameters are for that committee. Other pieces will be, do we want to hire a facilitator to help facilitate that process? Certainly we'll use our staff resources or GIS mapping of what different districts could look like. But there's a lot of decision points that will be coming then in late April or throughout May before we actually convene the committee. Before I go on, any questions about that? That's a really, really big initiative and high profile initiative for us. I just want to look also online. If there are any questions before I go into just my last topic. And I'm not seeing any. Okay, so we'll just keep moving along. And Whitney, I don't know if you want to provide this update, or I certainly can, but we've talked about, and the audit committee is well aware of the wage equity study that we have going on. Part 1 of the study addresses equal pay across the organization, people performing the same jobs or same job classifications having equal pay. The second phase is a market analysis. We're in that process right now. We have added a lot of requests from various departments, a third phase for classification, job classification, review and development for positions we don't currently have. That does push the completion of the project off until the fall. And so we're continuing to work on all 3 phases. Even we're making significant progress on the first 2 right now, and that third phase will begin shortly. Whitney, I just want to see if you have any other updates for that. But I wanted to give the
We've
committee.
been working collaboratively with the steering committee that's made up of representatives across the organization. Really excited with the progress we're making on the project. So lots of work being done there.
Great. Thank you, and the work that the multiple hats that Whitney and Eric are both wearing, and the jobs they're doing is really commendable. So including managing this. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, are some changes being made through as the process is going along, as the project is
So the
going?
recommendation of the consultant is to hold on implementation until all 3 phases are complete, because there's some tie between those 3 things. There's also a couple of things that fall outside of the 3 phases that Nick outlined, and those are recommendations on policy and personnel rule changes, as well as kind of an overall look at our classification structure. So right now we are continuing to follow those recommendations from HR Answers and plan to hold on implementation until we get to the end of phase 3.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Great. So those were the 4 updates I wanted to provide today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about those or anything else. Seeing none, I'll turn it back over to our chair. Thank you.
Actually, I will run something by you. Later in the meeting, we're talking about proposed budget. And I haven't talked with Elizabeth much about what we're planning to cover, but I do want to talk with the committee about the FTE going down to 0.5 and then keeping it on everyone's radar that we would like to bump that back up to 2 FTE at some point. And so I wanted to get your input or suggestions on the best way for us to do that, to keep it on the radar.
Sure, you're certainly welcome to make a motion to the budget committee if you wish today, and we'll forward that to the budget committee. If that's what you wish to do, and this is certainly a good forum and opportunity for you to make that motion.
Yeah, I agree. Summer really would be a good idea to keep an eye on things, and as soon as the opportunity presents itself, to be able to reestablish that position
Okay, thank you.
as a full FTE.
Anybody else have anything for admin? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's move on to our internal audit reports.
We are gonna start, we're gonna save the Fair and Expo until last because Jeff is on a plane, which is delayed, and he's hoping he can make it, but.
Elizabeth, we do have a couple other people joining us
Okay.
online. Steve Dennison and Jana Kane are here. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves, please?
Hey, how's it going? I'm Jana Kane. I'm the controller in finance.
Hi, good afternoon. Pardon me, multitasking, eating lunch at the same time. Steve Dennison, County Clerk.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay,
All right, so we're gonna start off, we have 3 follow-up reports to share this month, or so we'll start off with the first one, which was the custom developed software report, which we originally published last May. Just to kind of go through the background, we sort of framed our report around the software development process, making recommendations in the area of planning and analysis, design, implementation, testing and integration, deployment and maintenance. One of the reasons we, this rose on the risk factors to be addressed in audit is that we actually have more IT employees outside of IT than internal to IT. So there's not as much consistency as you and centralization as you might see in some organizations. Our audit didn't really make any value judgment on the IT structure versus comparing a centralized versus a federated system. But we did note that if you did have a federated system, it's more important to have strong policies and procedures in place to make sure that all of the departments are following those. So here's the status of the recommendations we made. This was a big audit, 13 recommendations. 2 have been resolved since the audit was put out, and 11 are still in process. Management didn't accept the risk on any of our recommendations, so they're planning to implement all of them. The first one has to do with a new custom software development policy. At the time the audit report went out, it was still kind of on the board's agenda, but hadn't been approved yet, but it was approved last Wednesday. So there is a new custom developed software policy, which is a great first step. That policy also includes unified coding standards, which we think will improve security and also quality of the software. Some of the next steps are kind of long-term. This is a big project, and a lot of the we made a lot of recommendations, and it's going to take IT a while to implement them all. One of the first steps, though, is putting together a software advisory panel. The idea here is to bring together technical and subject matter experts to make decisions in the county across departments in a more logical and consistent manner. And so Tanya will be working on putting together that panel, but doesn't expect to have that done until June of 2027. And a lot of the other recommendations are part of reliant on having that panel put together. So one of the things we talked about was putting together a cost framework so that people can make really standard and informed decisions about how much different software options cost. So the panel is going to take that work on. So that also is not anticipated to be done for a while. Another thing IT hasn't been able to do yet is to identify all of the software that's implemented across the county. For the time being, they're still relying on other departments to report when software is used. There's also a big dependency on employees for institutional knowledge about software. So we recommended more formal documentation of that. That's still in process. They're still in process a new software testing program. Also in process is putting together a secure repository for software development. This would be a place where everyone could store different versions of software and protection of source code if something happened out while it was being implemented. This would be a place to go back to for uncontaminated code. This one has a budget impact for departments, and so that one is being delayed until the next round of budgeting. Tanya's hoping to get everyone using this secure repository after the next budget cycle. Still working on system for user documentation and what people need, whose roles and responsibilities, and management's commitment to maintaining software. Still don't have service agreements in place for the software. And no policy for maintenance. So there's more. Where are we? We also recommended that they did track costs for software, including the amount spent on maintenance. They're working on putting together better tracking software for like an IT help desk ticketing system, and then also other ways of recording the IT to record ways of the time they spend on software so that they can then charge that back to departments, but they're still looking at that. And then the last one was that we asked them to improve their performance measures related to software development. And that is also not anticipated to be done until June 2020. So for our next steps, we will keep monitoring these recommendations, and it'll be included going forward in our annual global follow-up. So that will be in December. We will be reaching out to them for further updates. Are there any questions about custom software development? Okay. The next report. We will talk about the clerk's office. We have Steve here with us. Yes, good. So Steve is here. He can also answer questions. I'll go through our update, and then if there are questions for Steve, or if Steve has anything to share, he can jump in. This audit was originally published. But this is an update on our recommendations. That one. So just kind of go back through the mission of the clerk's office. Their mission is to both oversee elections and voter registration, and also to maintain county records, and that includes recording real property and marriage license, and coordinating the property value and appeals board. They also are the custodian of historical records across the county. This is the overall assessment of the status of recommendations. This also was a big audit with 13 recommendations, same as the last one. 9 have been resolved, 4 are still in process, and 0 accepted risks. So they are working on all the recommendations that we made. The first few were related to their information technology systems, and we saw that we saw in their software for both collecting payments on the record side and also recording documents on the record side. So the first one was related to segregation of duties. This was one where there was the software was built so that there was segregation between the same staff person could not both record and then review any records. We talked to management about why that had happened, and they said, oh, they thought that enacting that control would cause some customer service impacts. So we asked them to evaluate that process to see how much that would actually impact customer service. It appeared that it did not impact customer service, and they actually decided to segregate those duties. So now they're moving those software for those duties segregated. This is kind of somewhat similar. This is a recommendation we looked at about voiding receipts. So staff were able to void their own receipts, which is a risk, because if staff could void a receipt and then pocket cash from a customer. Again, the reason for having this ability was that they had low staffing levels, and that it would take too much time to get to call someone else over to void a receipt. But we noted that that voiding receipts was rare, and so we asked them again to evaluate customer service impact on enacting controls in the software that would not allow the same person to void their own receipts. And similarly, they found that would not have a big impact, and so they enacted the software controls. This is one where staff were using a shared password in order to log on to systems, because there were a lot of cases when staff needed to share a workstation. If someone went on break or stepped away, someone might have to come in and fill in. And the perception was that it would take too long for the new staff person to log into the system. And so instead of having each person be logged in, they would use a generic login. Again, for customer service reasons, but so we again asked them to look at this and decide if that was really needed or not. And again, they decided that it wasn't needed, and so staff are no longer sharing passwords. Another finding we had was that the purchasing card was unsecured. It was purchasing card for the office was on a shelf at the back of the office. So if anyone needed to use the purchasing card, they could go and get it without letting anyone else asking someone for it who was responsible for it. We didn't find any unauthorized purchases, but just noted that it's best practices to always have someone who's responsible for a purchasing card. So we asked them to keep it secure during business hours, and they decided to do that. So that is now secure. And then we also noted that the performance measures that they were using didn't provide clear information about how well the office was functioning. So we recommended some improved performance measures, and the clerk's office committed to implementing those, and they should be in the new performance reporting system. The final one was kind of a funny one. It was just a confusing part of county code that assigned weed control program functions to the clerk's office, providing some documentation about the weed control program. When the program really was housed within the road department, so no one would really know to go to the clerk, and also the clerk wasn't really doing that, since no one was asking for it. So we recommended that the clerk suggest to the County Board of Commissioners to amend the code to give that responsibility to the road department, and that was done last year. A few more that are still pending. One of the things we noted was that there were some kind of interesting financial practices that were in place, that management had said we're doing those, but we're doing them because again, customer service impacts. So we asked them to perform a fraud risk assessment so that they could just formally assess and document the practices that they were their cash handling practices. They had said they would do that by this April, but at the time of the audit, they hadn't reported any progress on conducting that risk assessment. And then so asked them the risk assessment to then update their policies and procedures to reflect the outcomes of the risk assessment. So because risk assessment hasn't been done, also the policies and procedures are still also not updated. We also noted that there was some inconsistency in compliance with rules for procurement. We recommended that the clerk talk to the new procurement manager to update those to update its practices. They've started preliminary conversations, but there haven't been any concrete changes in the office yet to report. And then the same thing, there were a few contracts that we noted that there were contracts in place or competitive procurements that should have been done. And again, there's no update on those yet. So that's that audit. And the next steps, again, just like the other audit, we will continue to follow up. This will be included in our global follow-up in December. And Steve, did you have anything you wanted to share? Or... Yeah, he's there.
I don't have anything outside of what you reported. But no, they are all, everything that has not been completed is still in progress, and the goal is to have substantial updates by the next report. You know, I could get into other specific reasons, you know, long tenured retirements to 25 plus year tenured retirements over the last few months, focus on the presidential election and now the election that we're working on. April came up pretty quick, so we will have substantial updates for the next report, but nothing further to add right now. But happy to answer questions. Daryl, if you're speaking to me, then you're on mute.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hi, Steve. It's
Hi.
Daryl Parrish. Not really audit related, but there's some things going on at the federal level regarding voter registration requirements and identification in that. Will any of those things increase your workload and or increase budget requests, staffing requests, anything of that nature? Do you think?
Yeah, I think right now that the impact is it has not been determined. Right now, from state leadership, from Secretary of State's office, you know, we're still following state law rather than this executive order that's can't come down and directing states to comply, otherwise risking access to federal funds. But we are still following state law. I understand the ID requirement that would probably add more. It would certainly add an additional task when we're processing a voter registration at the counter or online or however that would look. It would increase our need for capacity and staffing. The other one was related to postmarks and not counting ballots that were received after Election Day and things like that. But again, state law allows for that. There was another piece that was related to barcodes on ballots that doesn't really apply, but a certain number of items that were in that executive order, from presidential executive order, that could impact us, but right now it's indeterminate.
Thank you for that. Hopefully, if that were to happen, some federal dollars would come along with that additional work requirement.
I would hope so. Yeah, and I would say in a parallel path and equally as important and impactful are some of the other federal resources that we do have access to, or we have had access to. Certain groups, you know, Homeland Security and EIISEC. Don't ask me the name or to spell out that acronym right now. But certain federal resources that have helped us with cybersecurity, physical security to our facilities and other information that have now been defunded, and that will certainly have an impact on as we move forward. It's the security is now borne more here locally as well as at the state level when we lose those federal resources.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
We'll move on to the legal integrated audit. So, this audit was, fairly similar to the clerk audit, one of our integrated audits, so we follow standard methodology, throughout them. This one was also published last June. Just a little bit of background about the legal services office. They provide advice, legal advice and services to the Board of County Commissioners, the leadership at the county, other boards and commissioners and county employees. They're consisted of a county counsel who's appointed by the board, 4 attorneys, 2 paralegals. They provide general counsel, litigation, planning and code enforcement, employment and labor advice, procurement and contracting advice, and also manage public records requests. For this audit, we had 3 recommendations. 2 are resolved. 1 is in process, but there's a little note to add to that. And management did not accept the risk on any of these, so all of them. The first one, similar to the clerk's office, was that we noted that a fraud risk assessment hadn't been conducted, and so there were some things that we saw that weren't addressed in the policies and procedures, and we wanted them to think about what risks were associated with those practices. So county legal did perform a risk assessment and identified some risks and updated their procedures to address those risks. We also found that there was some segregation of duties issues within their collection of cash for public records. The same person was both receiving the fees for public records and then kicking off and initiating the process. So we recommended that they divide those 2 duties, and they have done that. And then the final one is related to performance reporting. We noted some areas that the performance reporting could be improved to be more useful, relevant, and adequate. The department said that it would, at the time of this, which was about a month ago, they hadn't quite yet gotten there, but I've heard reports that for this next budget cycle, the new performance reports will be added. And so when we update for the global in December, we expect to see that one moving to implemented as well. That's it. Those are our next steps. Dave is here and Pauline is online. Do either of you have anything you want to share with the committee?
Hi, Dave Doyle, County Attorney. I could just share that, yeah, the performance measure updates have been generated. They've been attached to the quarterly performance measure reporting that the county does. And so we complied with that request. I brought the packet of the measures that we've included in the performance measures. The county has this process where we quarterly report performance measures, and we're tracking this data on a calendar year basis. It doesn't really work as well on a fiscal year. So we didn't have this data until January, early February, and my goal was to get it updated into what I think would be the second quarter performance measure, which would be at the end of December, so the very beginning of January. And I don't know exactly why we didn't catch that, but in any event, this is now uploaded to the one that we're working on now, which I believe is the third quarter of the performance measures. So in future years, we'll upload it in the second quarter reporting, but this year it got uploaded in the third quarter reporting.
Are you finding it useful?
Informational.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, I knew all this myself, but I mean, in terms of externally, I could see it having some utility. Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate the recommendation that Elizabeth and Aaron gave us. I'm happy to have it.
any other questions, comments? Alrighty. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Well, the final, audit report, we'll get to Fair and Expo, even though Jeff's not here again. He sends his apologies, his flight was delayed. This is on the alcohol program at the county fair in Rodeo. And this report was released in April. So here are just a little bit of numbers about the 2024 county fair. There were about 100,000 visitors with $1 million in revenue, $455,000 in alcohol sales. Of that, $164,000 was profit on alcohol sales. One of the reasons we ended up doing this audit is that the alcohol sales program at the fair has changed. Prior to COVID-19 and maybe 1 year after, it was all done in-house. There was the county worked to get a liquor license so that it could sell its own alcohol. There was a staff person managing it, buying the alcohol, and hiring temporary workers to sell the alcohol at the fair. But there were a couple reasons that the county decided to reconsider that. One was that during COVID-19, they had purchased a lot of alcohol, and then when the fair was canceled, they had some excess inventory, and I guess alcohol sales is perishable, and they weren't able to return it, all of it, so they took a little bit of loss there. Another change with the staff who was in charge of the program was preparing to retire. He was kind of a jack of all trades. He was a caterer. He knew how to run concessions. He also was skilled at doing this alcohol program, and they thought it would be hard to find someone who could do all of those things. Another thing is that they were moving away from the beer garden sales model to one where alcohol was allowed to move throughout the facility. The reason for that, they said, was that the beer garden model was actually a place that they had more security issues with that model because everyone was concentrated into one place and all they could do there was drink. They couldn't do other things or interact with their families. So to move away from that model. And then also after COVID-19, it's been harder to hire temporary staff, which I think is, kind of consistent across industries. So our audit objective was to determine whether the new alcohol sales model, which they partnered with an alcohol sales provider, was cost effective at the county fair. And so we looked at financial reports to compare financials, the prior model, the current model. We reviewed their procedures and documentation, and then also conducted an on-site observation of alcohol sales and also how inventory was secured. So our first finding was that they couldn't demonstrate program success. One thing was that they hadn't really set up a model of how they expected to see the program change, how they expected to see a change in sales or profits. In the prior model, they had a 52% return on investment in alcohol with about $130,000 in net profits. With the new model, there were more sales, but a lower return on investment. So the return on investment went down to 38%, but the profits went up to about $170,000. If there had been a 52% return in 2024, they would have netted about $240,000. So we recommended that they come up with a way to evaluate their program, comparing their the prior in-house program to the current program, or also to think about if there were other contractors who might also offer a better value. Another problem was that there was some confusion in how the confusion in roles in how the program operated. So the first bits of confusion had to do with contract language. That there were elements of the contract that implied, in some cases, that there was more county control over cash than actually existed. The contract required policies and procedures for cash handling. It had accounting system and internal control requirements, and it also required turning 100% of sales of all of the cash over to the county. Yet, when I actually talked to management, they said, no, that cash actually belongs to the vendor. They don't have to follow our policies and procedures. They can do their own accounting system. They can have their own internal controls. We're not responsible for that because it's their funds. There's confusion in the contract over who had responsibility for the cash throughout the process. Another thing that wasn't really clear was there was conflicting language about payments. In one part of the contract, it said that Oregon Beverage Services would retain 62% of sales. And another part, it said that the Oregon Beverage Service would give Deschutes County 100% of sales, and then Deschutes County would give Oregon Beverage Service 62% of sales. There was also no language in the contract discussing who was responsible for inventory, and also water sales were not mentioned within the contract. Water sales are kind of a significant amount, portion of the what the vendor sells. Another bit of confusion has to do with kind of how this process functions, and so this chart kind of lays out how money and alcohol move before the four parties, the distributors, Fair and Expo, Oregon Beverage Services, and the fair and attendees. So the first, starting up at number one, kind of confusing because right away Oregon Beverage Services just gives the county cash or nothing. Oregon Beverage Services decides how much they want to order and sell, and then they give the county money. And then the county uses that money to buy alcohol and pays the distributors. The distributors deliver alcohol, but then it's not really clear who they are delivering to. The name on the invoice is the Fair and Expo staff, but it's actually Oregon Beverage Services who receives it. So there's not really clear ownership at that point of who owns the alcohol. Then this part's clear. Oregon Beverage Services sells alcohol to fair attendees pay Oregon Beverage Services. But then Oregon Beverage Services gives all the money back to the county, and then the county gives 62% back to Oregon Beverage Services. One kind of problem with this is every time money or inventory crosses those lines, there's risk. So you probably would want a system that was simpler, so there was less risk associated with those transfers. So we propose another model, and this is kind of a more traditional concessionaire model, where Oregon Beverage Services would pay the distributor directly for alcohol. The distributor would deliver it to Oregon Beverage Services. Oregon Beverage Services would sell it to fair attendees. Fair attendees would pay Oregon Beverage Services, and then Oregon Beverage Service would give money, give that 38% to Fair and Expo Center.
So, can I ask a question?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Of the current existing model, are any of those components a requirement of compliance with OLCC, or is it just happen to be how it's set up?
No. So, it was, I was kind of understanding, how the license holder, the responsibilities of the license holder. In some ways, this seemed like maybe they were trying to get around OLCC rules, because there was sort of this Fair and Expo buying it on behalf of Oregon Beverage Service, but Oregon Beverage Service is really owning it. But in talking to OLCC, they said that no, that, this other model would work. Oregon Beverage Services also, has a liquor license, and so they can, they can also make purchases.
Ask a question. So was Oregon Beverage Services, were they involved in 2024 or were we looking at them? being
They were
involved?
not involved.
So we're looking at this as, so what I don't understand is how is involving them gonna help our margins?
I think, it was less to do with the margins and more to do with capacity and risk.
Staffing.
Yeah, staff capacity for staffing and, who was accepting risk.
So we would be looking at basically a 38% margin on this.
Do they determine the pricing that they charge cost public or who determines, or how is they could charge, you know, that kind of?
There wasn't anything in the contract related to how much Oregon Beverage Service could charge.
So they could charge more and make it more, pay less, you know.
They were required to pay the county 38%
Right.
of their sales.
But they have the control of pricing.
So if they, yeah, I mean, if they raise the prices, they might sell less too. That's a business decision.
Right.
Is there anything magical about 38%, or where does that come from?
Nothing magical about it. Nope. That's just what the contract said, and this wasn't a competitively procured contract. Initially, there was a trial, sort of like a how it goes, with Oregon Beverage Service, and that doesn't need to be competitively procured because it's just a trial. And then once I went to a regular contract, Oregon Beverage Service was the only vendor who responded.
And is it a 1-year contract or multi-year?
Multiple years. I don't recall when it expires. And that was one of the reasons we recommended, looking at, when they do their evaluation, looking at other options. If there are other vendors out there who could offer offer a higher return, 38%.
From the outside looking in, I think that would be a good idea, but I'm certainly not the most knowledgeable on the subject.
But what it's called alcohol, I mean, it's
Sorry?
it's alcohol and non-alcohol sales.
This was just alcohol, and water, alcohol and water, but this wouldn't include the vendors who are selling sodas or lemonade.
Back to the rate of return, did you identify any particular costs that were greater under the second model that contributed to the lower rate of return?
It's management mostly. I can't. Oh, yeah, so it's hard to parse it all out, because in the prior model, there was also staff who was overseeing the program, temporary staff, you had to pay for them. And then the alcohol itself, in this model, the new model, it is just the alcohol itself and the management fee. And so it's really up to the, and the contractor doesn't break down like how much I'm spending on staff versus management oversight.
But just so I'm clear, the previous year, less money that I had than the second, the more money lower.
That's right.
And this model would provide the same margin as we made in 2024. I guess that's what I'm hung up on, is that they can't demonstrate program success because they only had a 38% return. And what we're looking at is the same return. So, but the benefit, I guess there are other benefits as far as continuity of staff.
No, you're not looking at the same return. Sorry, this chart is saying if there was a 52% return, then that would have been the net profit.
Right. But the actual return was 38%, and involving OBS is going to be a 38% return as well.
No, sorry. This with the 38%, that's the return with OBS.
How long have we been
Oh.
using them? There's-
Oh, I
that-
think, it was the 2023 and 2024 fairs, I think. It was, so I think in 2019 was the last sort of regular fair. 2020, it was canceled. 21, I'm not sure, but it was also kind of still ramping up. And I think we've been using OBS since 23 or 22, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought that 2024, we did not use it.
No, we did, yes, so that's the difference, the former program and the new program.
So out of curiosity, in 2019, could it be that, so part of the benefit of using OBS is less management in the county staff time? So could it be that when there was a 52% return, that didn't factor in the cost of county management time?
It includes county management time. That
And
return.
which staff, out of curiosity? I mean, like,
It was the person who was running, runs the program.
not the individual actual workers in the field, that actually included the management teams.
That included the
Okay.
management team's time and then the temporary staff hired.
Okay.
Yeah. And I worked with Jeff and Elise,
There's probably some liability protection in using OBS, I would think.
yes, they are required to purchase alcohol sales insurance.
Yeah.
But there is still a question because they're selling on our license, so we still have some responsibility. And that's one of the things that isn't really clear in the contract.
Is there a difference between purchasing on the county's license and selling on the county's license, or are those one and the same? I mean, at
think
point
whoever-
of sale, OBS is the person standing there, they're the ones that have to be licensed, but in purchasing and receiving, then there's a transfer. So I'm just curious if there's a difference between, if both have licenses, is there a point at which that alcohol is transferred and sold under the vendor's license?
So it's not.
And I know
clear.
nothing about.
It's not
OLCC
clear.
rules or
In
alcohol
talking to
sales.
OLCC, I was like, does this concern you? And they said, they weren't giving me a legal opinion, but they were like, oh, we're not concerned. Because there's often times when there's a person who owns a bar, but they're kind of absentee and they hire a manager to run the bar. So maybe that person has a license to sell alcohol, but they're never even there. And it's the manager who really makes the decisions. And they kind of saw this as an analogous situation.
But if you serve alcohol to someone who is physically intoxicated, you have liability. So, got this OBS people who are doing it, then liability is more likely to fall on them.
That's what I was.
On the other hand, they have expertise that maybe the county doesn't have as well, because all they do is sell alcohol, so maybe they're better at identifying people who have overindulged or people who are underage than the county would be.
Again, I don't know anything about it, but 38% seems good, or is it not?
It's good.
Okay, that's.
A lot less.
When I talked to the former fair manager, he said that when they decided to get their own license, they were making about 25%. They were using a vendor and making about 25%. They decided to get their own license because they thought they could go up to 50. But he said when he would talk to other fair managers, they were getting about half of that, was consistent, so. I don't know.
My experience, there is good.
So are they feeling like this arrangement is not successful, or was that your opinion?
So my opinion was that, we couldn't really tell because they hadn't really set up any expectations for the program.
Okay.
Their perception, I think, is that it's been meeting their needs, but also there are no expectations on them for what's
So they develop a budget for the, like, the revenue, for the fair. This is part of it, I'm assuming. And so there must be some sort of expectations developed inside the budget as far as that revenue going to. So there's some expectations, like
Yeah.
as far as how much you get in the end.
And I think they are meeting their budget numbers.
Anything else at the moment? Should we ever keep going?
So we recommended that Fair and Expo consult with Oregon Beverage and County Council to talk about what risks are in the current system and consider implementing a program with fewer risks. And that also, if they decide to proceed with the current program, develop stronger control, including a system of documenting that transfer from the distributor to the county to Oregon Beverage Services. And that's it. Any questions or comments, any additional questions? And then also a reminder to complete our survey. Get your feedback.
At some point, we should set a goal for the committee.
Survey completion?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yes, don't use that word. Yes.
Maybe we could do that for the new fiscal year or something.
Okay, good
Hold ourselves accountable.
Yes. I need some
So
sort
the
of.
link is right there in the email.
Absolutely, sure is.
Oh, yeah. And then the judge joined us too. Welcome.
Hello. Okay, ready to move on?
So we have in process, we have two kind of exciting audits that I'm really enjoying working on. One is an audit of body and auto cameras at the sheriff's office. Right now, we are struggling to get data from, not from the sheriff's office, from 911. Trying to just develop a list of all calls so that I could then develop a sample of video to review. But right now, I'm having trouble getting just that list of all incidents. So still working with 911 and IT to see if we can figure that out. We also have the elections control audit going on. Steve is here. I'm still here. So we're still doing our risk assessment to figure out what we're going to be auditing. I've been doing some community interviews met with the major parties, League of Women Voters, Council, some Disability Rights Oregon, to kind of understand community perceptions of risk related to elections, and then build the audit methodology around not necessarily understanding that the risks the community has are true, but understanding that the risks they identify can guide the audit methodology to make sure we take a look at programs that are important to people. And then we also have our status report, and I can just share that quickly. We've been mostly spending our time where we've been spending our time. So not too much difference in overhead at the last couple months and 12 months. There's a little bit more time spent on non-audit, but that's been providing feedback to the policy advisory committee. And so it's not much time anyway. A little bit less on auditing, partially due to doing more follow-up reports. You saw we did a lot of follow-up reports in this period. And then also time spent in continuing education. I did a training down in Las Vegas on construction auditing. It was a training Aaron did and really got a lot out of, and it was a good training. So I'm really glad that I had a chance to do it.
How are you thinking that will apply here with the new building and?
Well, the thing I'm thinking right now is there's a lot of construction projects for solid waste that's going on. So I'm thinking about that. I want to do the construction audit on the courthouse was kind of the front end. I'd like to, once we get closer to completion of the project, look at those payments again. So yeah, I think it's a a good area for us to keep our eye on.
Would affordable housing be applicable? Is that something that the county? Outside.
Primarily donate land or provided, ARPA funding, but we're
You're
not,
not
we
running
don't
the
build.
project. Yeah, okay.
Um. So. The special. ones.
Yeah, does anyone need to take a break? Should we take a quick break or keep moving? Keep moving?
I'm good.
Good. All right, yep, let's move on to special topics.
The first special topic is introducing Susan. So, Susan, decided to join us today. So she's going to be our new, performance auditor.
Yay, welcome.
Yay, I'm excited. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I can't wait to be in person. Next time I will be in person joining you all. So it's very interesting listening to what you guys are talking about. I'm just listening and reading all the reports she's provided me. So it's been amazing.
Susan has a background in HR. Oh, Darryl, were you saying anything?
We will really look forward to having you on board.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So Susan has a background in HR. She also has a consulting business in HR, which makes the part-time position really work out for her. She'll be working, I think, 4 days, 5 hours a day, 4 days a week. in the
Yes.
office.
Yes.
Really excited to get started.
Yes, me too. I'm excited to be here. I can't wait to start Monday. So
All right, so the next topic is the budget proposal. So every year we share our, the budget with you. Usually, we do it a little, we usually had done it a little earlier, but this year, included a few more. We've changed things a little bit so that, there's more, visibility of the auditor's budget. We have our own org code now and we didn't before. So this is a little bit more real than what David may have shared in the past. But these are the real numbers. From fiscal year 2025, this is budgeted, not actual. So budgeted numbers for fiscal year 2025 are going down from 380,000 to 350,000. And that's due to the change from the full-time performance auditor position to the part-time performance auditor position. The materials and services is going up a little bit, about $1,500, and that is mostly due to just increases in what things cost. But that does not include our internal service fees, so that doesn't include the amount we're paying for legal services or our space, those things. This is just to kind of show that impact again of our whole budget. If we had stayed at 2 FTE, our budget would have increased to $453,000. And like we're decreasing instead, so we're saving $88,000 that decrease. This is what the changes look like for materials and services. Based on last year. A lot of the larger things, the conference and seminars, travel accommodations, airfare, those have gone up just because prices are going up. The fees people are charging are higher, airfare is higher, hotels higher. Software license went down. That mostly is because we decided to stop using our audit management software. We figured we weren't getting a whole lot of value out of it. And that we use the Microsoft suite to get out of what we needed to get out of it. When I talked to them, I said, I know there are things in the software we aren't using. We'd like to learn more about it, but your training is really expensive. And she's like, well, our training's what it is. We can't offer you any discounts. I said, well, I don't know how to use it. So that was that. What else has changed? Membership and dues. Oh, that went up. That went up because. The equipment line increased. We were previously just using the admin's equipment line, and so just put something into the budget for us, so that we would know what we spent, just if we needed to buy books or a whiteboard or whatever we might need to buy. And then the program expense went down. That was the cost of our peer review, and so we don't have a peer review next budget cycle, so that's lower. I also wanted to let you all know that budget week is May 12th through 15th. Not a lot of people participate in the budget conversations, but it's there, and everyone should pay attention. It's an important couple of days. And we will be part of the administration budget presentation, which is on May 12th right now. Right now it's scheduled for May 12th at 10:30.
So would this be a time that we wanted to just make a recommendation that, you know, the committee would like to go back up to 2? Would this be, you know, time to do that if we wanted to do that? Not sure it's gonna happen this year, but at least put it on record.
Just before you go there, if I may, budget week is actually May 12th to the 14th. Initially, it was until the 15th. But we had one of our board chair is now traveling on the 15th, so we've compressed it to 3 days. So it's the 12th, 13th, and 14th. So
Okay.
the deliberations will occur on the 14th, correct, Robert? Yes. Okay, yeah. So just
Thank you.
want to provide that.
Question. Where did all this come from? Who developed the proposed budget? Did that come through you as a recommendation to finance, or does finance put it together, have you review it? What does that process look like?
So I am in the administration budget, so the personnel numbers, administration tells me how many personnel I can have, and then this I put together and gave it to Whitney, and she didn't have any questions about it.
Curiosity, but in the chart that shows if we had stayed at 2 FTE, it's like a 15% increase between 25 and 26. I was curious what that would have been related to. The 15% increase. So the 395, if we had stayed at 2 FTE, if I'm understanding this correctly, if we'd stayed at 2 FTEs, then the 26 budget would have been 452. And so a 15% increase sounds like a lot to me. So I was wondering what might be part of that. Is it
Robert,
the insurance
Chief
thing?
Financial Officer, for the record.
Yeah.
Hello. So yeah, I'm assuming, yeah, based on the slide, the number on the left is the current year's budget, number going up. 2 things that are associated with that, obviously, personnel costs go up, PERS rates have increased, there's COLA step increases that are typically built in. I'm not sure of the assumptions that were put into that number there, but one of the biggest factors that plays into the difference between the current year budget and next year's budget is we had a 30% increase in health insurance costs over this current year. Our original budget we budgeted 15% increase in health insurance, so it was 15% more than what we actually budgeted. Departments were charged with absorbing those additional costs within their budget. So especially with ISFs, internal service funds, or central service costs, so that we didn't put a burden out on departments. So that's also contributed to why the number increases an additional 15% in health insurance.
So yeah, that fiscal year 2025 was the initial budgeted amount for the office, not the actual cost.
It's a budget to budget comparison. Just since I'm here, if I may, Chair, for a moment, just a reminder of this year's budget process. And I know there was a lengthy conversation here. There was a lengthy conversation at the Board of County Commissioners regarding that position. And before you make a recommendation, just to provide a reminder, a little bit of context for this fiscal year. So as we know, the general fund was charged with finding $2.5 million in services where the general fund provides, and it crosses many departments: district attorney's office, health services, juvenile justice, youth services, public health,
tax, assessor's office, DA, I think I mentioned DA. And so all those general fund areas were limited to 3.3% growth. Yet, however, we know their personnel costs increased more than that. So they had to find savings either through vacancy savings in their personnel costs or by finding savings within their materials and services. The budget instructions that went out and that the Board of County Commissioners approved stated that there would be no special requests for any of the general fund departments or internal service fund departments. So even though there were needs, and there are some departments that are reducing FTE, vacant FTE within their program areas, or they are not filling current vacancies. They're not getting rid of the position, but they're not filling current vacancies. So I just want to put that in the context of a request that you may be putting forward or talking about here. As you're talking about DA office who isn't filling one of their positions, right? You have health services that's reducing or eliminating positions, and just putting that in context. Also, as far as the timing, the proposed budget, the budget officers, the proposed budget will be as it's stated. I think they're in, or as put forward as the positions that have been approved by the board at this point, right? But given the political context, another option that you may want to consider as opposed to putting forward a special request when others weren't allowed to do that per se, is during the public comment period. I think that's definitely a period, option that you put forward, that continue to express your opinions, the support, the need. That's just another option as the board and the budget committee weighs all of the various challenges throughout there. Again, have the direct conversation you want to have, go whichever direction. I just wanted to provide a little more context. That's kind of some general on there.
The 3.3% growth, was that just for personnel?
No, that was total.
Total general fund budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we previously pass a motion to recommend to the commission that we remain at 2.0 at the time they were making that decision?
You did, and that was what we took to the board in mid-December, when they finalized the initial decision. So this would be right if you wanted to make now a recommendation to the budget committee.
Yeah.
Because the board did consider that recommendation at that meeting. Now, we can, of course, carry that forward if you wish, or you can make a new motion, to move, to go back to 2.0 FTE if you wish, and then you could also present it, or the chair or whomever could. I can't, any of us can present that to the board. I think it means probably more to the budget committee if it comes from a member of the audit committee during public comments at a meeting, but whatever you feel you wish to do today.
My initial thought is, let's do that. But, it kind of feels like we're saying we still think that we need 2.0. Whereas if we went down the road a little bit and we had some chance for Susan to maybe have an impact, we could say 1.5 isn't doing it. And doing it now and then maybe make that less powerful, we could dilute that. So
I tend to agree with that. And then also, I feel like want to keep it on the radar so we don't lose track of it. And then I also think about the fact that we're going from 3 to 5 commissioners, and that could really change the tone. So I kind of agree with not pushing real hard until we have some more data and until we have a different structure of commission and everything kind of settles and resets, and then see where we're at.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I think that, we certainly want to make sure that the board is cognizant of the sacrifice that the internal audit program has made. And when it's time to start adding things back to the organization, that whenever that is, hopefully it's soon, that the internal audit program sacrifice is not forgotten and would be one of those that would be restored sooner rather than later.
I was really happy that you were able to fill the half. That was my concern, because it's a really hard. I think you kind of found a unicorn.
I think
I think you found a unicorn. I think that if you still had that empty, I would be more for going for like, having a formal request because we were not able to fill that type of role. Since you're able to fill it, I like waiting a little bit. Then, yeah, that's my feeling on it.
And I like the public comment. Opinion, I know you did a great job, so when you gave, when you went to engage the public comments, I watched that, and so I think keeping it, you know, I'd be happy at some point, I mean, just, yes, keeping it there, I mean, and that maybe do a formal recommendation, but just speaking in front of them.
I'd be happy to do that. When at the meeting, public comment section in May.
as well. What I might throw out for consideration, and again, I'm just kind of brainstorming here, but as a motion, if we don't do a formal recommendation, I believe we could still do kind of a statement, if you will, to the budget committee, just asking them to keep that in front of mind for when circumstances change, right? So instead of making the special request, which everyone has said we're not supposed to do, and we're gonna say, well, this is extra special, that doesn't feel right in the long run, right? Well, we're extra special. Maybe it's more of a communication of just making that statement, and maybe just the public comment is enough. But we could also consider a written statement from the entire committee. Thoughts?
Is it possible to make a written statement in public comment?
So like we do the public comment, leave the written statement.
I'm just asking if that's possible.
Yeah.
You could also submit written comments to the budget office. We forward it to the full budget committee, so you can forward it to myself or Cam, and we would be sure it gets out to the full budget. Or drop it off during the public comment. That's a good option.
Just as the discussion continues, as an appointed department head member, I'll just say that I'll abstain from the discussion and from the decision. So,
Okay.
for the record.
Okay. Okay. So we'll definitely do some public comment at the budget committee. Daryl's gonna do that. Daryl, are you speaking for yourself as the chair or for the entire committee?
I could do it either way. I mean, obviously, if I speak for the entire committee, we should probably talk about exactly what I should say. But I mean, again, my thought is having the making sure that the budget committee and the board of supervisors, the board of commissioners is aware of the fact that the audit program sacrificed half FTE. And we understand that now is not necessarily the time to add that position back, that at some point in time in the future, when things start to grow once again, and positions are added, that the audit program be kept in mind, that it did sacrifice half position, and that it functions, you know, better with 2 FTE based on experience, something along those lines. Just, you know, mainly to keep the sacrifice in mind and have some thought about restoring the position back at 1 full FTE when that can be done.
Committee members, is anyone not comfortable with that message being communicated on behalf of the entire committee?
I think that was well said, Daryl. I think just repeat that.
Okay.
Whitney,
Just staff, committee members who are staff, as the committee formulates a recommendation, there may be some complication with staff making recommendations to the budget committee that are outside of their program area, so just kind of flagging that.
It'll, yeah, make sure that it just that message comes from the public members.
Did you hear the phrasing Whitney used, Daryl?
I think so. I heard it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's a conflict essentially with the staff members, or there could be.
Yeah.
And that makes perfectly good sense to me.
Okay, do we need a motion to move forward in that direction? Okay, just with our conversation here.
Good with the conversation. I
Yeah.
think.
Okay,
Is it formal enough?
okay. And do we also want to do a written communication of any sort from the committee? Or are we comfortable just with the verbal?
I don't know. I think we could just leave it at verbal. It'll be in the record from public comment. It'll be in the official record.
Okay.
I mean, we can write it down if you want, but I don't know if we have to. If the rest of us think we should write something down, we can do that, but I don't know if it's necessary.
Okay, everyone comfortable with not doing written, just doing the verbal?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move forward with that.
Can I just ask a question, just in
Please,
terms
yeah.
of the public comments? Robert, is the public comment just at the start of the 3-day meeting, or is it at 10:30 when this agenda item?
It
is
would
on
be,
the board?
it would be listed on the agenda, and it's usually at the beginning, near the beginning of the meeting. It wouldn't be, I wouldn't recommend it on this agenda item. It would be during the public comment period when it's posted for the public.
Okay, which is generally at the start of the meeting on Monday morning probably, so I just want to make sure that the timing is appropriate, so that we plan accordingly if that's the case, okay. Thank you.
Robert, do you mind just confirming that through Elizabeth? to the
Yeah, and we
committee?
can send out the agenda.
Perfect, that'd be great.
Yeah, make sure, let me know so I'm ready at the right time.
I'll share that with you.
Thank you.
And it will be posted, obviously, on we'll still send it out, but it will be posted on my county's website every day of the budget committee for those 3 days.
Thank
Okay.
you for providing the additional background.
Yeah, thank you. Very helpful.
Elizabeth, anything else that you wanted to?
No, that was
Budget
on the budget.
Anything else from the committee? Okay, let's move on to the next item.
So item is kind of most exciting one. We get to brainstorm new ideas for the audit plan. So I'm planning to come to you on the June meeting with a list for you to vote on. But this is sort of your opportunity to give shout outs to anything you might want to see on that list. And then also over the next month and a half, you can also send those ideas to me personally, but I thought it might be interesting to have a conversation here too. There are things members of the committee kind of want to bat around of things that they're curious about. One thing so we have 2 audits in progress, the body camera and the clerk's audit. We have one remaining from the last audit plan, which was on homelessness. So typically we roll those over, but if you want it, that could either stay or go as well, so.
So in the past, when we've had this conversation, it was helpful to see a list of topics that had come up in the recent past and things we had passed on, and then some other ideas from internal audit or management for us to consider. And then we would also kind of brainstorm our own ideas.
Yeah.
It's probably not something that you have.
Well, I was planning to do that next time.
Oh, great. Okay.
So when I bring the full list, but I just thought we could kind of have a dip into it now.
Great.
Too.
Awesome. Okay. Good.
I got a brainstorm idea. Do we have exposure to tariff volatility?
Imagine we're buying fleet equipment and we're buying other.
Construction.
Everything's big.
And then everything we buy is some sort of.
Yeah,
Yes, across the board.
Maybe that'd be.
everything under the materials and services portion of every budget.
Yeah.
So what might
Exactly.
the audit be? Just understanding?
Yeah, should we be shifting to buying domestically,
Oh, shifting purchasing.
or is it
methods.
possible?
Yeah, it may be just asking,
Yeah.
it may not, just understanding what the possibilities are,
Right.
if any,
What's
because there's
suppliers
things that aren't.
yeah,
possible.
procurement available.
Would that be helpful in supporting what we're doing?
And you guys,
Yeah.
I'll give it some thought.
People.
I'm not sure if, obviously the DEI kind of task force that was removed. I don't know, I'm not sure what the audit, but like the impact of not having that committee or that forms, that structure as part of it. I know it's the HR, but what impacts that has had, or could have, or I don't know, just.
Yeah.
That was a big thing for me personally.
A type of performance audit, especially in times where we're tightening our belts, is the effectiveness and efficiency audits. Those sometimes can feel a little painful to departments and divisions, but it's a time where somebody can look at how people are doing things and why they're doing things, make recommendations to maybe take less steps. If there might be some low hanging fruit, some areas to do those type of audits.
Is there an area you're thinking of?
No, not particularly, but just when I'm creating a budget too, but everybody's like ratcheting and that's a good way of internal audit, kind of highlighting areas that maybe we aren't as efficient or effective at the same time, that would help us work smarter in the county. And again, that would help maybe show our value, but more of another half FT might help identify dollar savings.
That is within the scope of audit, right? Great. Would it make sense to poll the department heads to see if any of them feel like, hey, my department could, I'm sure there are places in my department that could be done more efficiently. You know what I mean?
Get
some that would actually appreciate it,
please. Yeah, some of it's sometimes can be a hard, I've witnessed it be a hard sell, and some are very open. So yeah, just that's my only like little warning part.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be great if somebody's please, because sometimes we do something because we need to get it done, not necessarily because we do it. But that's just another performance audit, that area we could delve into with it.
Courthouse construction, is that probably something that's gonna show up? Or is it too early?
So that's sort of in my head, but do you know the timing on that?
Yeah,
It's 2 years
I was
away.
assuming that was gonna be. Substantial completion is around August of 26. Calendar wise, so that would fit into your 2-year plan. And likely it probably makes sense to begin the audit a few months before. Substantial completion is what I think we talked about in the past.
Yeah.
And just as an aside, we're close to completing the pre-construction audit response. So our target due date was May 1st, and so we'll be sending that over in the next few weeks.
What else?
Anything regarding health and human services and federal grants potentially drying up, certain programs becoming under stress because of the result of that? Is that anything that's important or current that needs to be looked at?
On our radar, we're tracking that every day.
Yeah.
Where that goes, yeah, that's.
Nick, you would have thought about,
All I was gonna go, the one, and I don't know if this is if we're almost too early or how we would tie this in, but it goes back to the efficiency of the departments. But and maybe this is just too big of a topic, we want to narrow it down, but what is the opportunity for AI in some departments, improve performance? There's more opportunity in some departments than in others, and we're all just learning so much, and some departments are gonna embrace it and some are gonna.
that is huge. That is huge, but maybe an
The others
initial,
will, but it's just an interesting, it's like,
yeah.
every conference that I go, I don't go to that many, but we hear about how it can help improve efficiencies and performance. It's not replacing positions, but what might that look like? And I don't really know.
And there's risks in it, because if you let an AI crawl your documents, that is a problem of what your staff dump into AI.
I will say that Tanya Mahood's actively working on we currently have a policy, we have training, and then some new programs rolling out.
Yeah.
There's good policy and strict controls around it, that said, people can always go rogue. Do what they might do, but I think IT is doing a really good job of trying to provide the resource while keeping it safe.
So maybe it would be a second year of the 2-year, since a lot of this is being rolled out over this next year.
I think Tanya's mentioned, and I think you might have been alluding to this as well, is if your documents aren't clean, if there are errors in your documents, then what you ask AI is gonna be wrong. So it's not just, is the AI working, it's also what is the data you're putting into it.
You guys needed.
I have to go to the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
I have another idea that I'll share with you on
Okay,
Tuesday when
yeah,
we
we're-
need to talk about it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Well, and the AI is like more of a countywide type of audit, I would think.
Maybe an initial, more of an initial assessment or opportunity analysis. Is that kind of what you think?
Yeah, it's just just thinking there's there's audits of different departments and divisions and countywide. I mean, those are big undertakings.
Yeah, and it's hard to hold people accountable to a countywide recommendation. So it might be scope, I might choose to scope it to a department that might have big impacts.
Have there been any like external regulatory audits that have come back with findings that might need a little bit deeper dive or more attention?
None have come across my desk. We do have a policy that says they should. And I haven't really been paying attention or promoting that or making department heads aware of that, so.
Okay.
Something paying more attention to.
Anything on the solid waste front? I know we've been looking for a landfill site. And I don't know how long it's been since we looked at that, but maybe there's nothing to look at.
Well, that was one of the things they do have a lot of projects aside from that landfill construction project. So that was another thing I was thinking would be beneficial from that training. And we haven't been in solid waste in a while. So something to look at. Anything else?
No, but I mean, things may pop up over the next month or.
Yeah, and
We can email.
List and email you things.
Yeah.
Find us news changes on a daily basis.
Should we just ping you, Elizabeth, as
Yeah.
thoughts come up?
that'd be great. Yeah,
And probably just one-on-one, we can't really have conversations as committee.
that's right. Yeah. Just wanna-
All right, are you ready to move on?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Oh,
The last item is that we have some member terms expiring. So those will expire at the end of June. So I plan on reaching out to those members to see if you want to continue your service or not. And but I just wanted to kind of get that on everyone's radar that I'd be reaching out to people about that.
Who do we have?
I'm one of them.
Okay,
I think it's Kristen, Summer, Jody, and Chuck.
that's the end of our agenda. Anybody have anything else for the good of the order as Robert comes to the table?
If I may, thank you. I did pull up our draft agenda. I just wanted to
great.
confirm with everyone here the record. So our first day, as you had on your slide earlier, Monday, May 12th, the meeting starts at 8:30. The public comment scheduled for 8:45. But as you know, the first few items, maybe we'll get through quicker or a little longer, but meeting starts at 8:30 on the first day, Monday, May 12th. The meeting time is also starting at 8:30 on the draft agenda so far. On the Tuesday and Wednesday, there's also an opportunity for public comment on both of those days at the first of the meeting as well. After the chair opens up the meeting and has a few announcements, and there's an opportunity for public comment all 3 days, essentially, but the first day it's scheduled May 12th at 8:45.
okay.
But again, you know how the agendas are fluid, so just keep that.
And then will those be like YouTube? Bill?
They are,
Yeah,
they're,
that's all
yep,
those.
they're just like all the regular
Regular
board of
commission
county
meeting.
commissioners.
Yeah.
Online. Thank you.
Do you know if they're
But
going
if
to
you,
be?
if you wanna make
constrained?
comment, you need to use the Zoom link, not the YouTube.
Right, yes, just far.
If you're online, yes,
Right,
yeah, yeah.
watching versus participating.
Do you know if, or have they in the past limited public comment to a certain, like 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
Three?
It all depends on the year, right? Or there's.
Honestly, better knock on
Yeah,
wood.
obviously, when I've worked in other organizations where we've gone through allotted reductions, you can get a lot more people on comment.
Sure,
Comment
yeah.
period.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Monday, May 12th, 8:45. Got it.
Anything else before we adjourn? Okay. Meeting is officially adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks, Summer. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.